Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? If you can, please say something on the chat. I just want to make sure the audio is, working so I don't talk for like 20 minutes and then figure out that the audio wasn't working this entire time. So if you could just please write something on the chat, that would be appreciated. Let's see. Let me tweet this out real quick. And this one will be a little different because I am not home, so I do not have the extra screen to read tweets and whatnot. So I'm gonna have to go back and forth here between browsers, which will be not problematic, but it's just a little extra step. Whatever, it's not a big deal. But yeah, can you guys hear me? Somebody, please write something on the live chat so I know. Oh wait, I can actually hear myself. Oh yeah, I'm good. All right, guys. So we are live. Welcome to my UFC Mexico City. I don't even know what to call these. UFC Mexico City preview. That's what I've been doing so far, but it's really mostly like a Q&A. So I have to figure out a name for these, but just haven't had time to like work out all the details. But nonetheless, I do not want to have that halt me from doing these. So welcome to my UFC Mexico City preview, live chat, Q&A, whatever you want to call it. Bienvenidos. So the way this works, if you're new, is I am gonna share you my initial thoughts from this card. Basically, just real quick, just a nice little preview of what I think of the card and some of the matchups and sort of my overall thoughts. And then I'm gonna take your questions at the end. So we first we're taking questions from the chat, but now, in order to queue some questions and have some stuff ready, I've asked the Twitter world to throw some questions my way via Twitter by replying to the tweets. So obviously those get priority, and then I will move to the questions on the chat. So if you didn't tweet, don't worry, I will get to your questions on the chat. So throw them at any time you want, but preferably towards the end, so they don't get queued towards the end. All right, so let's get this started. Again, as I said, this will be a little different because I don't have the extra screen. I'm on the road, obviously, here in Mexico, by the way. I'm not at home, so I don't have the extra screen to, go back and forth with. But let's get into it. UFC Mexico City, or I've been seeing the hashtag going around UFC Mexico, actually used by the UFC. I just realized this morning, and the entire time I've been covering the event, I've been using the hashtag UFC Mexico City. Not so smart, but oh well. Anyway, so this event is being headlined by a fantastic featherweight bout between two very exciting strikers. Of course, I am talking about Yair Rodriguez versus Jeremy Stephens. This is a very good main event. I understand it's not a title fight. I understand it's not a number one contender bout. I understand it doesn't involve the two biggest names in the sport, right? But one, it is a ESPN Plus card, so don't expect some crazy fight to be at the top. And two, I mean, just look at the Jeremy Stephens like past record. I mean, the guy has just an incredible amount of performance of the night wins and fight of the night wins. I mean, I'm looking right now at his Wikipedia page, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 5. All right, that's a pretty solid number. No, 5, 6, 7, 8. Holy shit, 9 performance of the night bonuses. That's a lot. And I know he's been in the UFC since 2007, so it's not like he's just got here and he's got 9. He's obviously had to put in some work, but probably a lot of those performances as well were performance of the night or fight of the night worthy, and they didn't get it. The Dennis Bermudez one, I don't think he earned something for that, and that was a fantastic KO. It was a flying knee knockout, if you guys don't remember. And Yair Rodriguez just came off the craziest knockout probably in MMA history, UFC history. So yeah, these two might not be the biggest names, but as far as action, it could be one of the best matchups the UFC could put together, this year. One of the best matchups, especially at 145 pounds. So by no means are we getting a shitty main event, because I understand like people are into the whole big fights and money fights and all that. And on top of that, like styles wise, yes, it's fantastic as I just mentioned. But like if you've been looking at the coverage that I've provided over at MMAfighting.com, I had exclusive interviews with Jair and Jeremy Stevens. Jair on Tuesday and Jeremy on Wednesday. They haven't really gone straight at each other's neck, right? It hasn't really been like yo, F you, I'm gonna come rip your head off type build up, like as we've seen with other matchups. But they've thrown jabs there, especially more on the Jeremy Stevens side. There is some bad blood, at least maybe not personal, but on a competitive perspective. I feel like Jeremy Stevens has a chip on his shoulder, and he's like, look, this is he's a kid. I'm a man. That's what he's been saying. He says I'm old school, but like, bro, you're not gonna show me anything new. Like I've been around for a while. You think you're gonna come? This new kid, you think you're gonna come here and show me something new? We'll see about that. And Yair is totally like, nah, you're old school, bro. Like you've been around for a while. I'm the new face, and he's also kind of not been dismissive, but he understands. Don't get me wrong, that Jeremy Stevens is a tough matchup, is a dangerous matchup. But he's like, bro, you're coming off 2 losses. I wish I would have gotten somebody higher in the rankings. I wish I would have gotten somebody higher in somebody on a win streak, right? Because I'm gonna fight anyways. I might as well, do it for the highest price possible. And he feels like he didn't get that, considering other matchups that were involved. Yesterday, I was talking to Brian Ortega, and he was telling me that was a matchup that the UFC considered and brought to the table. Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. That would have been a big fight for Yair Rodriguez, right? Like if you beat Brian Ortega, who just came off, I know he's coming off loss, but it was against the champion. Dude, you're right there into title contention. If you beat Jeremy Stevens, it also depends how, right? But if you beat Jeremy Stevens, yes, you get two back-to-back wins, Korean Zombie, Jeremy Stevens. Yes, you're a little closer to the title, but nothing's guaranteed. I mean, I don't think the Brian Ortega would have guaranteed anything, but I'm sure it's obviously debatable, but I'm sure most of you would agree with me that that probably would have put him closer, right? Obviously, we also know that the Zabit matchup was talked about as well. So yeah, again, this is a fantastic main event. I'm ranting a little bit here about the main event, but nonetheless, guys, watch this fight. It's going to be a good one, and it's an important fight for the division. 2 guys in the top 10 going at it, so it definitely has, there is stake. They're fighting for something more than just a paycheck here. In the co-main event, Carla Esparza taking on Alexa Grasso. Not a huge co-main event, but nonetheless, it's like Carla Esparza is a former UFC champion. In fact, she was the first ever strawweight champion in the UFC. Alexa Grasso is a fighter that's been coming up. She's like, I think 26. She's a 90s baby. She's looking real good. She last time she fought was against Karolina Kowalkiewicz earlier this year, I think in June. Let me make sure. Yes, June 8th, at UFC 238. And I don't know if you guys remember, but there was so much buzz after that performance because like she looked so sharp. Her boxing, her timing, her speed. And talking to her this week, she's like, yeah, there are reasons why I'm looking this sharp. She's really stepped up her strength and conditioning program. And if you look at the weigh-ins, at the face-offs, right after the weigh-ins with Carla Esparza, there's a big difference between Grasso and Esparza as far as size. In Grasso, I mean, she's always, she's not like a small girl at 115. She's always been, muscular. But nowadays we see her, definitely in better shape, definitely looking stronger. So that's paying off. So it's like she was already skilled. Now she's just pairing, the athletics side of it, and we'll see how far that can take her. I mean, so far against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, we saw that it can take her pretty damn far. So she's looking good. And look, in order to be at the top, you need to be challenged everywhere, right? And we saw huge holes when she fought Tatiana Suarez, right? I don't know why I say Tatiana Suarez. And yeah, I mean, there was a big hole there in the wrestling and the grappling. And Carla Esparza, before Tatiana Suarez came on the scene, Carla Esparza was regarded as the best wrestler at 115 pounds. I think she's second right after Tatiana Suarez. So, there's only been one fight gap in between those two, and she has a big test. I think if we're gonna measure if Alexa Grasso can contend for the title in the near future, I think Carla Esparza is a good challenge to sort of put that to a test, right? If she gets past Carla Esparza, now you start wondering, okay, who in the top 5 can she take on, right? And then, the rest is for imagination. But yeah, a pretty good co-main event. Again, kind of like very similar, kind of like the main event where it's not the two biggest names, but nonetheless it's a good fight that means something. So that's pretty important. Yeah, and then there's a bunch of other good fights. I will probably get into those with the questions if you guys want me to get into them, of course, by asking them on the live chat, or if you ask them on Twitter already. I believe some people have some questions about the undercard on Twitter, so I'll get to those. But I basically just want to share my thoughts on the main and co-main event because the other fights are smaller fights. So I don't want to spend too much time on them, and I want to have time to answer your questions. And also, in a couple of hours, I gotta get ready and head over to the arena. So there's that. All right. So with that out of the way, let's take your questions that you've submitted on Twitter. Executioner 91 asks, "Is this a little too much for Yair? He has the same amount of KOs as decisions. He was pummeled by Edgar and TKZ, the Korean Zombie. Won on paper, but took damage. Now he's going in there with Sicario." I'm guessing Jeremy Stevens. Stevens is a man. Jaid is accumulating miles so early in his career. So the main question here is it a little too much for Jaid? No, I don't think so. I think it's quite the opposite. I think this is a good level matchup. He wanted a higher level matchup, right? He wanted somebody higher in the rankings, and I understand that, and I respect it from a competitive standpoint. Like, look, you want to test your skills against the best. But if I'm being honest here, like I thought after he beat BJ Penn and then he was matched up with Frankie Edgar, yes, he didn't go up as far as star level because he was in the main event against the legend. And remember, BJ Penn had a lot less losses back then, so a win over BJ Penn, it wasn't like getting a win over BJ Penn of old, but nonetheless, it meant more than what it means now, right? So as far as star level, he didn't have a big jump. It was just about right. But as far as skill level, Frankie Edgar at the time, and still, he was so good. It was such a big level, such a big gap, and we know that affected him. In my interview with him, he was like, "Yeah, that affected me, man. That was rough. It took me a while to get back on my feet, but it was part of the process of learning. Like, look, these things happen. People lose, and he was undefeated, and watching that go really hurt him. So yes, he came off like a fantastic win over the Korean Zombie, but look, he's still young. He's still a prospect. He's more of a contender now, but nonetheless, he's still somebody in development. Don't go to the top right away. So I think Jeremy Stevens, he's a good matchup for him. I think he's right there. I don't think it's less. I don't think it's more. I think it's just about the level that he should be fighting. Get a few more fights like that, and then we'll see how he looks, and then he could potentially fight for the belt, right? That's if he gets past Jeremy Stevens. But I do agree, he is picking up some miles. I mean, the Korean Zombie fight was tough, and he said that in the interview. He's like, yeah, I was having some health issues, and I had to take some time off and let my brain rest. That's why he hasn't fought in 10 months. And that's the way to go about it. A lot of fighters that, say like an Israel Adesanya or others, I'm not saying that, they're taking a bunch of damage, but they're just, there are a lot of fighters that are just constantly active. And yes, there's a lot of benefits to that, but in the long run, I think this approach is probably better. Although I do think that sometimes you got to get on your bike and go, right? Because when opportunity comes knocking, you got to take it, and sometimes it's not always going to be there. So no, I do not think it's too much for Yair Rodriguez. I think this is a good level fight. I think it's 7 versus number 8, so good bout. And as far as damage, I think the only damage he really took was against Edgar, and then he didn't fight for like a while, and then the Korean Zombie, and then he took 10 months off, and now he's coming back against Stevens. So as far as damage, yes, he's taking damage, but he's managed that well with time off, so I'm not concerned about that. Thank you, the Executioner 91. That's the homie always throwing questions. Appreciate it. All right. Amir Betis asks, this is on Twitter. What time, homie? That was like what, 12:30 Eastern? My question is, why is Carla Esparza co-main event for tomorrow card? Are there too many events diluting the product? Yes, that's 100% true. There's just too many events in the UFC. We've discussed that, like, a lot, not only me, but a bunch of other media members. It's just every weekend there is a UFC card. It could be exhausting. It could be definitely a little bit of oversaturation. It definitely dilutes the product as well, because you need more fighters in the roster, and it's hard to find, it's easier to find, 50 world-class fighters than it is to find 100, right? That's just common sense. But nonetheless, Carla Esparza was world class. Alexa Grasso was world class. Like I said, they don't have the big names, but I don't think this is a bad co-main event. If you look at Grasso, I think she's, in her short UFC run, I think this will be her fourth co-main event slot. So like she's been at that spot, right? It's not like she was buried in the prelims all along and they're like, look, we're going to Mexico. Here, fight in the co-main event. No, she's fought a bunch of times in co-main event bouts. So she's already a headlining fighter. I mean, not maybe main event, but headlining fighter for fight nights. And Carla Esparza is a former UFC champion. She was the first champion at 115 pounds. In fact, she has not been part of a main event or a co-main event since she lost the belt to Joanna Jędrzejczyk in the co-main event of UFC like 189 or something like that. I think Pettis fought in the main. Let me pull that up. I think Pettis, if I'm not mistaken, he fought in the main card, in the main event, and that's why Carla was co-main event. It was a title fight. I think Pettis was champion at the time. Let's see. I'll tell you right now. Oh, UFC 185. I was close, in Dallas, Texas. And that was when Pettis took on Rafael Dos Anjos, and he lost his belt. So, yeah, I mean, she hasn't gotten a chance to shine since that moment. And I think, look, you're a former UFC champion. You're a former Invicta FC champion. You should be in these slots. So I disagree with the homie here. What's his name again? Amir. I think this is a fine co-main event for a fine fight night. This is on ESPN Plus, so it's appropriate. And I'm glad she's getting the shine. She deserves it. Like I said, she's been through a lot and put in the miles, and she's getting some shine now. So good for her. All right. Let's see the other question on Twitter. Aldo Raine on Twitter asks, where are you on Sergio? Those Pettis boys look incredible sometimes and terrible others. Huge fight for him. If he loses, that's three in a row, 4 out of 5. 4 of last 5. Love his style, and I hope he can get the job done. Time will tell. Do more of these, Danny. Thank you, man. Every time I get a chance to do these, I will do these. I love doing these. I love answering your questions. And most importantly, I love talking about MMA. That's just what I'm passionate about. So, yes, if I get a chance to do these more often, I will. But for now, again, subscribe, like the video, turn on notifications so you know when these are coming, and that's that. So where am I on Sergio? Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not as doomsy as you, Aldo, here on this one, because I do think that, because remember, Sergio Pettis went up to 135 pounds, right? I do think he's a flyweight at heart. I think he's built for flyweight, like, physically. And he went up to 135, and that was really just right before the flyweight purge, right before they started cutting that ridiculous amount of flyweights. I don't have any information on this, so don't take this as a fact. But I feel like Sergio knew something was coming. Either somebody told him something, or he knew something was up, and that's why he bumped up to 135 pounds. Because if we look at his record here, let's see, Sergio Pettis. I mean, right before he jumped to 135 pounds, he was killing it at flyweight, and he was like title contender. So since October 2015, he had beat. This is in flyweight, right? He beat Chris Carriazo, then he beat Chris Quilades. Sorry if I'm killing that name. John Moraga, who's legit. Brandon Moreno. That was a event here in Mexico City, and they headlined that card. And at that point, we're like, okay, Sergio Pettis is legit. He's finally putting his skills together. He's a legit contender. So they put him up against Henry Cejudo, who's triple champ, right? For those who don't know, Olympic gold medalist, bantamweight champion, flyweight champion. That was kind of like a #1 contender spot a little bit, right? He loses, but we know how good Henry Cejudo is. I mean, he's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters today. So no shame in that. And then he goes on, and Sergio Pettis, and then he goes on and beats Joseph Benavidez via split decision. Joseph Benavidez is so good. I mean, he is in line right now to fight Henry Cejudo. That is the fight to make a flyweight. He is the #1 contender, right? And that was in 2018, June 2018, so just a year ago. And then he suffers a loss to Jussier Formiga. What I said about, bantamweight, I think he knew something was up, went to 35, lost to Rob Font's super legit. So I don't really count that bantamweight fight all that much, because I think he was fighting out of his weight class. And then the Jussier Formiga fight, Formiga super legit as well. So, and then before that, he beat Joseph Benavidez, right? So I don't think by any means like Sergio Pettis can get cut here or anything like that. I mean, yeah, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but the guy's legit, and I think everybody knows that. A loss to Tyson Nam, who's also legit, obviously would hurt his career, and he would have a long road to get back to title contention. But by no means, I think Sergio Pettis is fighting for his job here. Hope that answers your question, Mr. Aldo. All right. What the hell is this? Redemption Son asks on Twitter, what team is Brian Ortega with currently? So there's a scrum on MMAfighting.com, which you can check out. There was a super weird event with like Mexican influencers. There was actually, if you guys know the show Club de Cuervos on Netflix, El Zombie, that character was there. And I heard apparently there was a famous porn actress too there, but I don't know who it was. And a few other, I guess famous Mexican people. And they were taking classes from Henry Cejudo, Cain Velasquez, and Brian Ortega. And then we had scrums with all three. They did in Spanish and English. So we talked to Brian Ortega, me and it was for English. It was really me and just John Morgan from MMA Junkie. And we asked, "Yo, where are you training? What's your team?" And zip, he doesn't want to reveal anything. What he did say was that he's made a bunch of changes, and those changes were fueled by the Max Holloway loss. He's like, "Yo, I can't eat Jack in the Box anymore. I've actually never had that. I think that's like a East Coast thing." But he's like, "Yeah, I can't do this. I can't do this." Like that loss showed me that because he was getting by with like not being like a professional athlete. I mean, he got a title shot not being a professional athlete, and those are his words, not mine. And once he was in there, he's like, "Yeah, I needed that." So he doesn't want to reveal what team he's with right now and what kind of things he's doing in training. But he says soon because he's looking to fight in 2019, and we know the time is ticking for 2019. So more details to come. I don't have any details on that, but he seems to be taking a very smart approach to his training now, a very more advanced, a very more professional. So that's a dangerous Brian Ortega, man, because he was already good with Jack in the Box. Imagine how good he's going to be with a legit training regimen and all that. So I wish I could answer your question. I don't have details on that. He didn't want to reveal anything, but just know that he looks to be at a good place, and he's making the right adjustments to be a professional athlete. So yeah, that's going to be fun. So there was a little bit of a bad boy here in the Twitter section. This person did not actually reply to the tweet where I was asking questions, but another tweet that I had chained talking about this stream. And this person asked, let me find it real quick. DJ Shep asked, favorite style of street tacos? Al pastor con queso. Bro, I had that shit last night. I had two of them. And I'll be back for more tonight after the event. Close to the Fighters Hotel. I won't reveal the location. Close to the Fighters Hotel here in Mexico City. Yeah, dude, the street food here in Mexico City is amazing. And look, I thought I had it pretty good because I live in Brooklyn, and where I live in Bushwick, there's like a huge Mexican community. So there's a Mexican restaurant literally downstairs. Like the first floor of my building is a Mexican restaurant. So I'm always eating Mexican food. I'm always eating street tacos in little trucks, and that food's amazing. But there's levels to this game, bro. There is levels to this game. And Mexico City has it down. I haven't been to other parts of Mexico. I'd like to go to Zacatecas, to a bunch of other places as well. So I don't know if the street food is better there, but here in Mexico, so good and so cheap. Like with like $2, you can like have like a really good meal. So yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, my favorite so far has been al pastor con queso as far as street tacos. Good stuff. All right, I think that was it for the Twitter question. So thank you so much for everybody that submitted questions through Twitter. This gives me time to, come up with a little bit more better answers, a little bit more elaborate, because I obviously, give it a look before I go on the stream here. And also, so I'm not waiting for you guys to throw questions on the chat. So thank you guys for participating via Twitter. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Danny Segura TV. Now, I'm going to take questions on the chat. So I'm going to bear with me. I'm gonna quickly go down through the chat, take your questions. If you ask dumb shit, then I probably won't answer it. But if you ask cool stuff, I will answer it. So let's do it. All right, Jackson Bass on the YouTube live chat asks, Alexa Grasso, best arms in women's MMA. She was looking pretty jacked. Yeah. Best arms. I mean, Weili Zhang, the champion, or Zhang Weili, sorry, because first last name goes first, and then first name. She's pretty jacked. I think she did a Q&A not so long ago. Like, was it for the Abu Dhabi card? I'm not even sure. But a few weeks ago, she did a Q&A, and Henry Cejudo was upstage on the stage as well. Bro, her arms were jacked up. And we're talking about 115 pounds. That's the smallest weight class in the UFC. So I mean, if we can go higher, I mean, Gabby Garcia, she's the biggest, so she's more jacked. But I guess pound for pound, that's a tough one. Felice Herring has also pretty jacked arms. I think she's actually probably one of the most muscular looking fighters at 115 pounds. So no, I wouldn't say Grasso has the best arms in women's MMA, but definitely in the top 10 of women's strawweight. I think so. But yeah. Let's see. Gonzalo Herrera, excelente, Dani. Gracias, Gonzalo. By the way, for my Spanish viewers, hice una entrevista con el Teco Quiñones, está en mmafighting.com, la hice en español, con subtítulos en inglés y muy buena. El Teco tiene una historia increíble, así que por favor vayan a mmafighting.com y vean esa entrevista. What I just said was basically I did an interview with Teco Quiñones, who is a very interesting character. It's on MMAfighting.com or on MMA Fighting's YouTube channel, I should say. And it's in Spanish, but I added the subtitles, which took me forever. So make sure to check that out. That's actually a very interesting story, and I don't think I'm going to get asked about it on chat, so I'll bring it up now. The government of Zacatecas, the cities where he's from, paid for his training camp. They closed down a gym, like a basketball gym, and they set up a cage, mats. They set him up with a house with nutritionists, cooks, people that would wash his clothes, people that would clean the house, and not only to him, but they built a mega camp in Zacatecas, which has higher elevation than Mexico City. There was Sajara Eubanks, Angela Hill, Jeremy Stevens, a few guys that fought last night on Combate Americas, Brandon Moreno, who fights tonight, Martin Brau, who fights tonight, El Teco as well. I mean, they just had a huge camp, and it was a lot of it was sponsored by the government. Isn't that ridiculous? Like, imagine Frankie Edgar being sponsored by New Jersey. Like, here, train. We want you to be our world champion. It's unheard of. And yeah, he's got a very interesting story. And apparently the governor is like a huge, like, trained Kung Fu and Taekwondo. And now he's like a big MMA fan. And he's like, yeah, like, we'll hook you guys up. So yeah, that was a very interesting story. So check that out on MMAfighting.com. All right. I'll keep going with the questions. Jose Luis Palacios asks, why do you think Gogito Perez didn't sign again with the UFC? Yeah, that's a good one. So for those who don't know, Gogito Perez was really before the Yair came and all this like new Mexican fighter wave that came through the Ultimate Fighter in Latin America. Gogito Perez was like the Yair for the Latin market and Mexico. Gogito Perez is old school fighter at this point. And he fought out his contract and he signed with Combate Americas, had a few fights there. And he fought out his contract, I believe, because I don't think Combate Americas has an exclusive contract. So it's not like if another organization comes knocking, they'll pull you. I think you have to honor the contract. And now he's signed with Bellator. Look, I think Gogito Perez I think that was a good move. I think, he's a name. I mean, we're talking about him right now. Again, not a superstar, but like he'll probably be valued more at a company like Bellator than the UFC. I mean, we have a wave here in the UFC of Mexican fighters, so he's not as I don't want to say as needed, but the UFC has other players that they can plug in these cards, like the Mexico cards, when they come to this country or Latin American countries. Whereas Bellator doesn't have as many Hispanic fighters, right? But for example, Alejandra Lara, who's Colombian, she trains with Irene Aldana, Alexa Grasso in Guadalajara here in Mexico. And so imagine if Bellator decide to have an event in Mexico. They can throw Gogito on there. Lara's Colombian, but she trains out of Mexico. They can throw her on there, or even in Texas or like somewhere close to Mexico. So I think he's more valued to that promotion. So I think he probably saw that as well. And since he's probably a little more valued there, that usually comes along with money usually reflects that. So again, I don't know. I haven't talked to him, but those are my guesses. But yeah, glad to see El Gojito in Bellator. It's gonna be fun. Let's see. One Go Tanks says my money is on the elevation level, bro. I'm telling you, like, I lived in Miami, so sea level, obviously. Prior to that, I lived in Bogota, but I go every now and then, but I haven't like lived and trained there in a while. So I lived in Miami, trained in Miami, sea level. Then moved to New York, lived there, trained there, sea level. Now I'm here in Mexico City. I think it's like almost 8,000 feet up above sea level. And like, dude, just going up the stairs, I feel it. I feel it. Like you're like, oh shit. Like, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with elevation, like you might think like something might be wrong with you, like you're getting a heart attack because you're lightheaded and you feel sick. So for those who took fight on short notice, like Vanessa Melo, who's fighting again in Dana, it's gonna be rough. She took that fight on 5 days notice. And for those who didn't come to Mexico City and get acclimated to the elevation and the pollution as well, because Mexico City is very dirty, and it's a huge city, and it's sometimes the air pollution is so bad that they have to like they implement this rule with where like certain cars with a license plate that ends in a certain number can't go out to bring down the contamination level. So yeah, I mean, if you didn't come early to get prepared to that, and I hear it's 21 days to get acclimated to elevation, you could potentially have a rough time. I mean, we saw what happened when Cain Velasquez fought Fabricio Werdum, and the whole sea level Cain, was born from that moment. So yeah, man, I know it wasn't much of a question, but yeah, wise move is my money's on the elevation level. Yeah, if you came early, you got a good advantage. All right, Jose Luis Palacios asks again. I'll go with this one quick because you already asked the question. Where was it? Oh, how do you think is Alexa Grasso's boxing compared to the rest of the division? I think it's really good. I think she has kicks, but if we're just talking boxing strictly, I think she's up there. I think with striking, just overall, I think she's not the best, but she's one of the better girls on the feet. But boxing wise, I think she's got to be top 5. I mean, she's really good at that. Karolina Kowalkiewicz fight, she was putting combinations together and just looking smooth, sleeping with the punches. And I've been training boxing for like 4 months now, and I mean, I did jiu-jitsu for like 8 years, and so I always appreciated and knew what was going on the ground. And in the boxing, in the striking, it was always easy to like tell, well, that guy's getting hit, so obviously the one who's dishing out the punches is obviously doing well. But now that I actually know a few things, you kind of start seeing, like, for example, I appreciate so much what Robbie Lawler did against Colby or RDA. Like, oh, you think he's getting whooped, but nah, bro. He's rolling with the punches. He's blocking them with his shoulders, right? You see it a little differently. So, and I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, Grasso's up there. Her striking's really good. John Machione asks, how do you compare the Korean Zombie striking to Jeremy Stephens? Would you say Jeremy Stephens is more technical? No, I would say, okay, this is a weird one because I would say Korean Zombie is more technical, but he is more wild. I think Jeremy Stephens is very technical too. Don't get me wrong. He's up there. I think they have different styles. I think Stephens packs way more power than the Korean Zombie, way more power. He's a little meaner with his punches. Not as wild, a little bit more measured, but he's certainly very aggressive. I think it's just different styles, but I think their styles still overlap with excitement. So yeah, they're great. I mean, I think those two should fight at some point. I don't even know if they fought. Maybe they've been around for a long time. But yeah, I think yeah, Stephens is really good. I mean, prior to that Jose Aldo fight where he lost, like, I was watching his striking and the way he was like just putting people, like destroying people. Let's see, let me pull up Stephens' record here. And I'm like, dude, this guy can potentially fight for the title. And that's why he got paired with Jose Aldo. Like, dude, you get past Jose Aldo, like, bro, you could be fighting for the title. Let's see. Yeah, he was in a nice little 3-fight win streak. Gilbert Melendez, Duho Choi, and Josh Emmett. And those last two were pretty vicious knockouts. In fact, for each of those fights, he earned a performance of the night bonus. 2 fight of the night and 1 performance of the night. I think that's when he, like, didn't he shatter like Josh Emmett's orbital bone, and he was like, Josh Emmett was out for a while. Like, he's vicious. I would say this. I would say Jeremy Stephens is more dangerous than the Korean Zombie. I would say that. I think that's a fair assessment. All right. Jaid, oh, this is not really a question. This is just a comment, so I'll get past it. Is Paul Craig likely to get cut if he loses? Maybe. There's actually a lot of fighters here that at UFC Mexico that are on bad streaks, like Polo Reyes, right? 2-fight losing streak, 3 in his last 4 bouts. Speaking specifically to Paul Craig, he is no, he's actually not that bad. He's coming off a loss, but prior to that, he's 2-2 in his last 4, so maybe not. And the UFC is going to Europe a lot, so they could use him. I don't think Paul Craig's job is on the line here, but if the UFC were to cut him after this, I wouldn't be extremely surprised. I'll say that. Coco Butt asks, how will Jair beat Jeremy? With speed, with distance, with angles, with movement, with head movement. Yeah, I don't think he can meet Stevens with fire with fire. I think Steven wins a firefight if they get into it. Coco Butt asks again, will Frankie retire if he loses his first fight at 135? Maybe. But I don't think he will. He's really good, man. I think unless he gets paired with the champion right away or like a really, really solid contender. But out of most 45ers, I'd favor Frankie. I just noticed this is really blown out my face, so I look extra pasty. All right, I'll take a few more and then I'm out because I gotta shower and get ready for UFC Mexico City. By the way, check this out. So I went to a Lucha Libre show yesterday. That shit was fun, and I got this mask with the Colombian colors, so I thought it was kind of sick. Dope, right? Anyways, I lost where I was. Okay. Henry Cocobot again asks, Henry has that much gold? Yeah, Henry has a shitload of gold. Triple C, baby. I just got done watching those scrums. Ortega should learn how to wrestle. Needs to improve his takedowns. I think if Ortega learns how to wrestle, plus he knows how to wrestle. I'm saying if he gets better at wrestling with his jiu-jitsu, I think he'd be almost unstoppable. He's really good, and he's got knockout power, which is crazy for a jiu-jitsu guy. Hell yeah, Kron Gracie versus Cub Swanson is coming up. I actually think I'll be going to that card. I think that's UFC Tampa. I believe MMA Fighting wants to send me, so yeah. Does MMA Fighting allow you to make your own merch? You should make some dope T-shirts. I think so. I don't think. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that shouldn't be an issue. But no, I don't want to make T-shirts. I mean, I don't have a lot of things branded. I just started this YouTube channel, so I think that's nowhere close to where I'm at. But I appreciate that comment, and I feel like, you know what? I feel like I'd be like a cool designer. I feel like I make some cool shit. Pancration asks, Danny, sup man, pumped for these fights tonight. How do you see Grasso versus Carla fight going? I mean, striker versus grappling fighter. If Grasso was able to fix some of the holes she had on her wrestling that we saw against Tatiana Suarez and implement the boxing that she already has, Grasso should win that. If Esparza is able to get Grasso to the ground, once Esparza is so scrambly and has such a good transitions, I feel like, Grasso would have a lot of issues there. So it comes down to who can implement what game plan. But they're both very, very skilled fighters. Saludos Zacatecas, Napolitanos, and Toras de Chorizo over here. Hey, that's what's up. I got to try those. Who do you got winning between Jair and Stevens? I'm not going to make a prediction. It's a good fight. Danny, do you think Cain will make it to WWE? I was talking to Cain yesterday, and I was like, yo, I asked him, I'm like, so the biggest fight, one of the biggest fights you had in MMA was against Brock Lesnar. Would you wrestle him? Would you consider that? And he's like, yeah, I'm down. But my dream matchup is against The Rock. And we know The Rock is a huge MMA fan, so he obviously knows who Cain Velasquez is, and I'm sure he's aware of this chapter of his life with the wrestling. So that'd be pretty sick. I mean, I'm not a huge pro wrestling fan, but if Cain were to go against The Rock, I'd watch that. Yeah, why not? So I think I don't even know, is The Rock part of the WWE? I don't even know. So yeah, I mean, I think he is, right? No, I would definitely hook you up with a free graphic design for a T-shirt, man. Love the content you post. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind for the future. Mm, Rashad is looking slim. Do you think Sugar Rashad fights at 185 or 170? LOL. Yeah, he's apparently coming back. I haven't read the details of it, but apparently he's gonna unretire. The UFC is gonna release him from his contract, and he's gonna fight. And yes, I recently saw a video with him at a football game, sideline with Mike Tyson, and they were kind of doing the whole thing. Everyone's obsessed with the movement of Tyson, and he's gonna fight again. Yeah, I mean, he had a pretty devastating loss against Anthony Smith, but that was at light heavyweight. Imagine if he fights at 170. I'd be curious, but at least, again, look, a lot of fighters are like a lot of fighters. A lot of media members hate when fighters unretire. I'm certainly not a huge fan of it, but I don't think I hate it as much as like others. And I don't really hate all that much as far as like really old fighters fighting. My whole issue is if you're old and you're not elite, don't fight at an elite level. Like look at Henso Gracie. The dude's like 52 and the dude's a savage and he's like, I want to scrap because I enjoy fighting. So I'm just gonna start with one championships and just take on guys that don't know much and that are not elite, and he wins, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, if fighting is your passion, do it. Obviously, as long as your health's not being compromised in a big level. My problem is if you just have a big name and you've just been getting knocked out and losing, and you're clearly not elite, but you're clearly fighting the elite, and the only thing that's keeping you among the elite is the name that you have, not your current skills, that's an issue. If Rashad Evans wants to fight, another older guys or inexperienced guys or guys that are not elite just for fun, just because he loves fighting and he wants to make money, do it, man. As long as you're not getting killed out there, do it. Coco Butt back at it again. Danny, what podcast do you watch on YouTube? Dude, I work so much that sometimes I don't even have a lot of time to check out podcasts. But I try to stay away from the MMA thing because I do so much MMA that like sometimes it gets a little too much. So, for example, Fresh Air from NPR is pretty cool. They have some cool guests every now and then. I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience every now and then, depending on the guest. The Art of Manliness is a really good podcast. It's like self-improvement, and they talk philosophy and very interesting stuff, and they have very interesting guests. They actually had Teddy Atlas, boxing legend, coach, and he was talking about the psychology and his history and how he got into boxing. And Art of Manliness is a really good podcast. What else? Obviously, everything that MMA fighting does. I love, Ariel Helwani has really good interviews as well, so I check out his stuff. Luke Thomas is, I think he's very underrated, and I think he produces some of the best content in MMA, so I always check out his stuff. Colchonero Chat, which is an Atletico Madrid podcast, I check that out. What else? A few others, but I forget right now. All right, I'll do like 5 or 10 more minutes of this, and then I'll dip out. Actually, it's maybe, like 15 minutes. Let's go to the hour. That's a nice solid number. Let's see. Brandon Music asks, is Jose Aldo the litmus test for title contention? Yair wins, gets him next. I think he's far beyond the litmus test. Basically, a litmus test is kind of like your gatekeeper, like an elite gatekeeper, like where you get past me, you're ready to fight for the title. Not necessarily. Well, if you get past Jose Aldo, you're certainly ready to fight for the title. But I think you can be title worthy and take an L from Jose Aldo. He's that good. Like I've said, I think it's sometimes a bad decision when they match up Jose Aldo against up and comers, because it's like these guys could potentially pose problems for Max Holloway. Again, styles make fights. So the fact that you're putting them against Jose Aldo doesn't necessarily mean, if they lose, doesn't necessarily mean they're not ready. It means Jose Aldo's still really, really, really good. He just doesn't happen to have the style to beat Max Holloway. That's it. So no, Jose Aldo is not a litmus test by no means. There are no plans to bring tough Latin America back. No, There are no plans for Tough Latin America, which is a bummer. A lot of stars came out of the show. It was an enjoyable show. I watched it, and I'm sick of the Tough in over in the U.S. and the one in Latin America. I would sit down and watch the episodes on its entirety, not only the fights, the entire episodes. Mark Ramundi, is that you? Yo, he was messaging me when I was last night because I was posting videos on my Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Dennis TV. Yeah, the dude's super into pro wrestling. He got me into it. I'm not like into like I don't follow it, but like I used to hate on it, and then he took me to a pro wrestling show in New York, like an indie one, and because the only thing I've always been exposed was like WWE and what is it like SmackDown or Raw, whatever. And I was always like, yo, the acting's so shitty. It's like watching just shitty acting, and the back and forth and the videos, and it was just that ain't for me. But in the indie scene and what I saw last night in Mexico, it's like legit athletes. Like it's like Cirque du Soleil. Like these guys are acrobats. Like these guys do incredible things where you're just like, whoa, they just jumped off like something super high and did like 10 flips. And there's not that much acting. It's just action, 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 action. And the crowd gets really into it. You have a few beers, get some food. It's a fun time. So I enjoy the indie scene. But the mainstream thing, nah. Again, it's not something that I follow, but if I have the opportunity to go, I'll go. Big O says, Danny, we missed you. I've been here all along, homie. Are the Colombian accents and Mexican accents super different? Sounded like you had no issue talking to the fighters at the scrum. Yeah, I mean, if you know Spanish, I can talk to anybody from Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, anywhere in South America, anywhere in Central America. The accents are different, and you can tell who's from where. Sometimes they get blurred a little bit, but for example, I have a really heavy Colombian accent from Bogota. And people, like for example, in my neighborhood in Bushwick, like Hispanics, like as soon as I talk to them in Spanish, they're like, "Oh, you're Colombian." I'm like, "Yep, Colombian." And I'm pretty good at telling who's who as well. Where it gets tricky though is over in the Caribbean. So Cubans, Dominicans, and Puerto Ricans have very, very heavy accents. Sometimes they speak so fast and just the way they speak that you miss things and you're just like, are we even speaking the same language? But for the most part, like, yeah, I interview fighters from those regions as well all the time, and I have no problem, speaking with them, right? I know exactly what they're saying. That's more like a street, like, if you were to go to a party or something, and like, you're talking slang with the people from the Caribbean, the Hispanics from the Caribbean, that's where it could get a little challenging, but nonetheless, Spanish is Spanish. User says, thanks for reading my question. Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for submitting a question. Gonzalo says, I would definitely buy your merch, Danny. Brian taking out no merch. At least not now. I'm not going to take out merch. Right? Let's see. Big O ask, are you hyped for Gonzaga versus LeVar Johnson bare knuckle? I'm not a big fan of bare knuckle. I don't really like bare knuckle all that much, to be honest. I like the storylines. Like there are some fights that have good storylines, so I'll follow that. Say like the, Artem Lobov, Paulie Malignaggi, and a few fights of that nature. But overall, as a product, I don't enjoy it. I think that fight was interesting because there was an actual, battle of styles going on. But a lot of those fights are just brawls. It's just guys that go right on the mouthpiece and that to me it just looks the same. Sure, it's exciting, but like after you watch a couple of those, you're like, eh. And also like I have questions about the longevity of the sport. I don't think you can have a long career as a bare knuckle boxer. I mean, if we look at the faces that after those matches, those guys' faces, because of the knuckles, that's why the gloves are there. The gloves in the UFC, they're so small that they're not there to protect your face like in boxing. It's not to pad the punch. Obviously in boxing you still hit pretty hard, but it doesn't pad the punch as much. It's mainly to protect the face so you don't get cut up. And we still see some cuts, obviously in the UFC, mostly through elbows, headbutts, every now and then from punches. But and it's still pretty bad. Like some UFC fighters have a lot of scars, especially like. And in camera, it's hard to tell, but when you talk to people in person and like you just start, noticing things, you're like, oh. But bare knuckle boxing, those guys look like they just fought some dude at the corner that had a machete or something. They're just pieced up, and I mean, I think you get 5 of those fights, 5 of those wars, and your face is gonna fall off, and it gets worse with time because it's just you develop scar tissue. I'm not into it, to be honest. That's not really my thing. Oli, saludos desde Dominican Republic. Saludos, Gabriela. Gracias por ver aquí este video. All right. If you guys, I'm done with the questions in the live chat. I read all of them all the way to the bottom. If you guys want to throw some questions now, I'll take care of those right now. If not, I'm gonna dip out. So you got a few seconds before I kill this. So I'm just gonna wait here and stare at the camera, sip on my water. Any more questions? Yes, no, regarding tomorrow's event? I'll take that as a no. Thank you guys for watching this live chat, live preview, live Q&A. I don't know what I'm going to call these, but I think they certainly need a name because I've been doing them already kind of like recurring. And dude, I enjoy these a lot. These are fun. So I appreciate everybody that threw in questions. Always, it means a lot to me that, again, this is only possible because of you guys. Like I wasn't even planning on doing these because for these events, because I've been so busy, but somebody asked me on Twitter, I'm like, oh, are you going to do like a live chat, like a live preview for the event? And, I quote tweeted it. I'm like, you guys down? And a bunch of people said yes and liked this. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So again, like, this is not possible if it wasn't for you guys. Like if you guys are not down to do it, I won't do it. So again, thank you guys so much for participating, not only throwing questions, but even if you're just viewing this. And yeah, so give this video a thumbs up, tell your friends about it, turn on notifications so you don't miss these in the future. And that's it. That's all I got. And then, keep it locked to MMA Fighting. Like always, I'll be there. I got to get ready and head to the arena pretty soon. So I'll be providing coverage over at MMAfighting.com and MMA Fighting's YouTube channel, which is also featured on the main page of my YouTube channel. So easy find as well if you're not subscribed there for any reason. And that's it. Enjoy the fights. And again, thank you so much. Gracias. Peace.